I'm wondering if you could draw a line between classical conservatism and libertarianism.
Well, I have a harder time, say, drawing a line between libertarianism and classical liberalism. And I'm not saying I can't, but I'm saying that because a lot of the things I would say differentiating them would be similar to the way I differentiate classical conservatism from classical liberalism. That being said, my standard line on libertarians is that I don't know what it is about libertarianism, but I swear you can have two libertarians saying the exact same thing. One of them sounds like they're a researcher at the Cato Institute. The other one sounds like they're just a crack addict. I don't know. It's a weird thing about libertarian. I think sometimes they take themselves a little too serious sometimes. I think libertarianism is good and valuable, and I really wished we had more genuine libertarians in government, because you always need somebody there saying, what if we just didn't do anything? We could really benefit from that. But I think, well, I'll put it this way. What I've said of classical liberalism of being a hollowness, I think is doubly so for libertarianism. I think libertarianism gets that half of the coin very right. It gets economics very correct. It gets ideas of liberty mostly correct. It seems to not anticipate or realize the degree to which we are not just individuals, but we're actually communities. And I don't mean, it's not the collectivist view, right? That we're a collective, if you will. Let me put it this way. Edmund Burke, who in a lot of ways I think probably comes the closest to the archetype conservative, even though I said there truly can't be one. He has this idea, and I'm not going to quote it exactly, but he essentially says dark and inscrutable is the manner in which we come into this world. That how we get here is unknown, perhaps unknowable. But we're here. And again, here I'm ad-libbing, this isn't exactly what he says, but words to this effect. We show up in this world that's already here. We didn't create it. We don't have the capacity to create it. We're probably not going to destroy it. It's probably going to be here when we leave. That entails certain obligations upon us. Obligations that oftentimes seem a little icky to the libertarian, if you will. Familial obligations, maybe obligations to a nationhood. Now, it doesn't mean you can't question those obligations. If your family asks you to murder someone, you can work your way through, maybe I shouldn't just follow that. It does, however, indicate that life is a connective tissue between the traditions we've come from and then hopefully us passing something on to a future generation. You can be a libertarian and maybe hold those ideas in tension, but they're really going to be in tension. Libertarianism is far more focused on the liberty aspect, which naturally wants to eschew notions of obligations of state or family.
Yeah, when I think of the tension between conservatism and libertarianism, it reminds me of this, Joseph Schumpeter. He described capitalism as creative destruction. And the libertarian says, destroy these old things that are inefficient. They're not serving us. Let's do whatever's new and more efficient and more productive. And the conservative says, well, even if this is not quite efficient, this is something part of our tradition that has value that we have to hold on to. Does that resonate?
Yes, because I think who was it? Irving Kristol made this comment once that he made a phrase, what we once called virtues, we now defensively call value. And I think that's really interesting because it has this notion with it that a value, the difference between a virtue and a value is that a value presumes there's some sort of a tangible benefit. Virtue may not. In fact, you can easily think of a situation in which a person behaves virtuously and it destroys their life. Maybe in a higher purpose or in a higher sense, they did what was right and they'll ultimately be rewarded, say, in an afterlife. But virtue does not guarantee value. It's not a commodity necessarily. And I think, and now they're often interchangeable. I'm not saying there's not a very high degree linkage between the two, but you have to, I think the other issue I have with libertarianism is it presumes humans are, it takes for granted a lot of things. You have to have a society of order and liberty before you can give them order and liberty. And those don't come necessarily from just libertarianism. And this is similar to, but not exactly my same critique of, say, classical liberalism. I think it presumes a little bit too much goodwill about human nature and its capacity. I think the founders had a very profound blending of, yes, we do have our better angels, we also have our darker demons, and we have to wrestle with that kind of juxtaposition, if you will, that we want humanity to flourish. I mean, Madison says this in Federalist 10 about liberty is like fire. It's good, it's also very destructive. And so you have to find ways to contain it. Sometimes, when people say that, what they mean is squelching liberty. I think maybe a better way to look at it is you can't really have liberty flourish. You can't have the full actualization of liberty without recognizing order within society. And unless that order is going to be inside the individual soul, that order is unfortunately going to have to come from an oppressive state.